Hello, welcome to another edition of our Friday devotional. So it may seem weird that I'm posting devotionals on my health and fitness blog, but I believe that if our heart is not strong and our spirit is not strong, that nothing else really matters. Plus, that foundation of knowing who we are in Christ and being rooted in the truth of His Word will be the thing that gives us lasting health results anyways on the physical side. So that's why you may see me use on social media the hashtag Be Truth Strong. So I invite you to use that if you want to, and if being truth strong is important to you above all else. So here we are, week 4 of our Strong Women of the Bible series. So we've learned how to carry the promises of God full term through Mary, the mother of Jesus. We've seen the power and determination and faithfulness of Ruth's story. Remember, she left everything she knew behind to literally potentially walk into a life-threatening situation with her mother-in-law, Naomi, to a totally new land. We studied the life of Hannah last week, who modeled how to turn her worries into worship, which is what we can do as well. And another bonus lesson from Hannah's story is that 2 wives marrying the same husband doesn't really work out too well. So just hashtag things not to do, I guess. So this week, our final Strong Woman of the Bible installment, we are going to meet a powerhouse of a woman. Oh my gosh, amazing, Deborah. Okay, Deborah was the 4th and only woman prophet in the book of Judges, all right? And one of 5 women prophetesses in the Old Testament. So not only was she the most distinguished judge out of the 4, go figure, she was a woman, for her consistent godly counsel and righteous application, she was also a wife, all right? That's a job in itself. She was a mother, and she was a well-respected prophet in the land. So this woman was on fire. She had her hands in a lot of different things, and she did them well. So let's just take a moment to appreciate Deborah for a second. So I think it's funny that the other 3 male prophets were not introduced with any other titles. So this is your typical multitasking, right? She's sharp on her feet, entrepreneurial, practical, and super smart. So every Israelite woman would have wanted her to be her mentor. I'm sure they were pounding down her door. I can guarantee it. She's like Beth Moore meets Lori Greiner, from Shark Tank. Really successful entrepreneur, and Martha Stewart all in one. I mean, amazing. So, quick backdrop to her story, Deborah. We have the Israelites who have been rescued from slavery in Egypt, right? They escaped the Pharaoh. And after 40 years of wandering in the desert, Joshua, their fearless leader, leads them into the promised land. So here they are. The only problem is that the Israelites were not the first ones in town. They were the new kids on the block, all right? So this was a problem. God led them to this amazing land. It was more glorious than they could have imagined. There was bountiful produce, perfect growing conditions for farming, and abundant wealth available. And their new neighbors were nations, unfortunately, who served other gods and did evil in the sight of the Lord, like really evil things. So instead of being diligent to do what God said, to drive out all of their enemies, to fully possess this new land, the Israelites made friends with these naughty neighbors, shall we say, namely the Canaanites. That's what this people group is called. They had no righteous king. The Israelites had no righteous king in this land to enforce God's law of love. So they repeatedly broke their covenant with God, not a good thing, and started to serve the Canaanite gods and did lots of evil things too. So you can read Judges yourself. It's an R-rated, to say the least, and a picture of what humans are capable of without submitting their lives to God's rule. And what was God's solution to get the attention of His people? That was my question. Well, He chose to talk through the Israelites, through prophets, in order to rescue and direct His people that He loved. He was passionate about His people. Unfortunately, this happened over and over. So things would get bad. God would raise up a prophet. The peeps would get their heart straight. The prophet would die. And then they would lose their marbles again. So here we are in the midst of this crazy cycle. God raises up His prophets out of love and compassion, right? He's not a stern God. He loved His people and He wanted to talk to them. So these prophets weren't perfect either, by the way, and they had their own issues. Deborah, however, enter Deborah, was a shining example. I don't know why, but I'm just not really surprised that she was a woman. She could just get it all done. And no disrespect to the male prophets, but I just think it's interesting how she was characterized in the story. So Deborah enters the scene when Israel had once again started doing evil in the sight of God. Not only that, but they were under the oppressive rule of the king of Canaan for 20 years. So think about that. For many of you, this would be like most of your life, living under a cruel leadership. And we're not just talking about Republican or Democratic, wherever you are on that spectrum, squabbles, political squabbles. We're talking wear the wrong color to school or to work and get beheaded or fed to ravenous lions. It's really bad. So lo and behold, Israelites people cry out to God, right? Of course, like, Lord, get me out of this thing. Right when Deborah arises. So apparently while everyone was suffering and crying out to God, Debbie, let's just start calling her Debbie, was running a successful courtroom, number one. She was mothering well. She served in the prophetic ministry at church, you could imagine, and she was an awesome wife to boot. So when she had a hunch, by the way, in the middle of this demanding schedule to summon a guy named Barak, she says this. So she's doing her thing, and all of a sudden she gets this unction, like, you know what, I need to call up Barak and have a little chat with him. This is what she says. Has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, Barak, go gather your men at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun. And I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, that's the king of Canaan, to meet you by the river Kishon with his chariots and his troops, and he will give you into her hand. So, hold up. Debbie basically just read this guy's mail. First, she called him out. Then she challenged him with what God was probably already saying to him personally. And that's not any Joe Schmo either, all right? This Barak dude was in charge of over 10,000 men. All right, so we're talking high rank, high visibility, and high influence. But little Debbie didn't care. She was bold in her proclamation, and she was not intimidated by anyone, even the commander of an army, although she was respectful. So Barak answers her. Here he is. I'm sure a little shell-shocked at the details. She just parlayed his message back from God to him. This is what he says back to Debbie. If you go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. This is what Barak says. That's in Judges 4:8. Oh my word. So Barak was so scared to go to battle without Debbie by his side. I guess I can't really blame the guy. I mean, she sounds pretty fantastic. So after all this, Deborah agrees to go with him, warning him that if this is the case, victory would be credited to her, to his disgrace, to a woman. And this would prove to come true. So it's important to note that although Debbie was a powerhouse of a woman, I want you guys to catch this. Debbie was a powerhouse woman, but listen, she was not looking for affirmation or seeking valor. She wasn't looking for this fight or this battle. She was being faithful. She was being faithful at home. She was being faithful at her job. She was being faithful in her ministry. And then Barak comes to her. She told him the truth. She wasn't ashamed. She challenged him. And ultimately, she did back him. She partnered with him by taking along to go to the battle. But she did not get distracted. And I think this is a word for you and for me too. So you need to understand that your greatest victory will come when you least expect it. It comes by doing faithfully the things that you always do every single day, like reading your Bible, like getting up and going to work out. Your greatest exploits, hear me, your greatest exploits, opportunities, and relationships will come in the middle of faithfulness in the mundane rhythm of life. I promise you, time and time and again, your greatest exploits, your greatest opportunities and relationship will come in the middle of your faithfulness in your mundane life. Stop waiting for some message in the sky telling you this is what your life plan is. It happens in the mundane and being faithful. So Debbie and Rock, let's just call him Rock, sounds like a good band name to me. So they go out with a mere 10,000 fighting men to take down the evil king's commander and his army. So on the battle line, the enemy army also was looking pretty fierce, all right? These guys had top-of-the-line arsenal, state-of-the-art weapons for that time, and things didn't look good for Rock and his crew. So enter Debbie once again. Here she is on the battlefield, not wielding a sword, but she's there, present. And she always had a word in season ready to help fight the battle until victory was there. So in the middle of Rock's doubts, once again, she shouts, and I quote, "Up! For this day in which the Lord has given Sisera into your hand," and she's talking to Barak, "does not the Lord go out before you?" So that is all he needed to hear. That's all I needed to hear. He and his army killed every one of Sisera's warriors. Every one of his evil army was killed, 10,000 men by the sword. Everyone was dead besides Sisera himself, the commander, who fled by foot. And, by the way, was also killed by another woman shortly thereafter. Crazy story, guys. Crazy stuff. So, victory. Deborah did not wield the sword. She stayed in her rightful place, right? But she still engaged the battlefield with her heart and with her mouth. She was not trying to be a hero. She was content being faithful in her task, but these opportunities came to her. Judges chapter 5 is titled The Song of Deborah and Barak. So I think the same day of their mighty conquest, they sang this beautiful duet together. Just imagine it. So I'm going to pick out 3 verses from their songs that can be applied for us too. So this is verse number 1. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were abandoned and travelers kept to the byways, because remember, they were been oppressed for 20 years. The villages ceased to be until I arose. I, Deborah, arose as a mother in Israel. So my question to you is, who is waiting for you to encourage them in your life? Do your kids need your powerful words of encouragement? Does your husband, your coworkers, your employees, your friends, maybe your neighbors? The second thing is, don't try to be someone you're not. Deborah arose in her place of responsibility. And in that case, it was as a mother in Israel. And in it, she literally was credited a military victory, and a big one at that. So maybe you need to arise as a student, excuse me, a wife, an employee, own it. Take responsibility and thrive where you are. The second verse in their song is, So may all your enemies perish, O Lord, but your friends be like the sun as he rises in his might. But your friends be like the sun as he rises in his might. So my question for you and for me, are you on the Lord's side? Right? If you've submitted your life to the Lordship of Jesus, you'll radiate like the sun and bring light to everyone around you. Your enemies will stand no chance against you. My third question for you, the third verse in their song goes like this. And the land had rest for 40 years. Wow. So if you arise in your current role and responsibility, you will find rest. So maybe not rest on the outside. Maybe all your circumstances will not be perfect, but you will find rest for your soul, and your circumstances will follow. So my challenge is to stay faithful in your place of responsibility. Encourage those around you, and you will win every battle that stands against you. Plus, you'll have opportunities that come to your doorstep they're absolutely blown away by, because you've chosen to be faithful in the little things. So you are amazing. Okay, I want you to know that. So please comment below with any aha moments you've had, maybe takeaways. I'd love to have a conversation about the insights you received from Deborah and Barak, and stay tuned for next Devo. So have a great weekend, a great rest of your week.